By the end of this video, you are going to be able to pick up any ingredient you want at the supermarket or out of your pantry, have a quick look at it and decide if it is easily fermentable for distilling, and if it is, what you have to do to it to make it fermentable. And I even have a handy dandy downloadable PDF decision tree to help you out. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, this is Still It, and today I am giving you the tools to break free from the oppressive distilling recipe. That's wildly overdramatic, I know, but here's what I mean by that. Let's not fool ourselves here. Distilling recipes are awesome. I love them. They give the scaffolding to new distillers to be able to get into the hobby and figure out what they're doing. For the pros, for the people that have been doing this for a long time, it gives the ability to be able to have repeatable results, which is amazing. But sometimes people stress a little bit too much about having a recipe and needing to know exactly what to do. And today I want to give you the tools, the ability, the knowledge to be able to break free of that and just pick something up off the shelf and say, yeah, I'm going to ferment this and distill it. Here is the decision tree that's going to help you out with this. And essentially it boils down to 6 questions. If you can answer these 6 questions, you're going to know pretty much what to do with any ingredient that you want to eventually distill. So let's go through the 6 questions first, and then we'll do some examples of going through the actual decision tree. So the first one is, does this ingredient have most of its energy stored in carbohydrates? Pretty simple question that I think everyone is going to be able to answer intuitively most of the time. A couple of little traps here. Number one is remember that when we say carbohydrates, that's everything from super long chain complex starches all the way down to simple sugars. Our goal with any ingredient is to end up with simple sugars. And as long as we have some carbohydrate, we can get there. That's what this whole decision tree is about. And obviously, just remember that at any point in time on one of these questions, you can do a little bit of research. And sometimes your intuition isn't entirely correct. So when I first started doing this, my intuition said that potatoes were full of starch. Turns out that's not true, but it's also a question you can answer in 2 minutes on the Google machine. So just keep that in mind for all the others. The next question is pretty simple to the first one. It's just kind of defining where exactly we fit on that scale of carbohydrates. And that is on that scale from super complex starches down to really simple sugars, does most of the energy reside for any given product. So bread, way up here, complex carbohydrates. Sugar, table sugar, way down here. I think you get the question. I think you get the idea here, right? Once again, the old Google machine can help you out a whole lot here. Let's move on to the next question, which is the starch gelatinized? Now, I actually do have another video that is giving you pretty much exactly the same information as this one. I've just framed it in 2 very different ways. The first video was the way that I kind of think about things, and that was easy for me to understand, but some people, it didn't just quite gel with the way they think, which is why I'm making this video. I'm going to put a link to that video down below because I think it's got a really good description of how gelatinization works in it. But essentially, all we're doing is taking a really crumpled up, kind of tight, balled up, long molecule and relaxing it out so that it can become soluble in water. That's what we need from the starch for our enzymes to go to work on it later on. And you do that by heating starch in the presence of water. Pretty simple. So any starch that's been heated for a long period of time, normally about an hour, makes everything safe. In the presence of water or a moist environment, the starch is probably gelatinized. So baked goods, bread, donuts, croissants, most cereals. Remember also, guys, that anything that is malted, so malted barley, malted oats, malted rye, whatever it happens to be, is going to be gelatinized as well. Malted corn, you get the idea. Anything that hasn't been through that process is going to be ungelatinized. The next question is, does it already contain enzymes? Because we need them. And I'm hoping if you're watching this video, you've at least got some idea of how this is happening. Once again, you can go and watch the other video. It's got a little bit more in depth on that. But essentially the enzymes are just going to cut the really long chain carbohydrates down into much, much smaller chunks, which is what our yeast wants. If the enzymes aren't there, they can't do their job. Now, basically for distilling, you're going to come across these in two main forms. One is going to be malted barley. Some other types of grains, some other types of ingredients do have some enzymes. Malted barley is the powerhouse in terms of getting a buttload of them in one go. And the other option is just to buy bottled liquid or powdered enzymes that you can add in yourself. And the last two questions kind of blend into being pretty much the same thing, and that is, once you have sugar, so either we started with sugar or we mashed something that was more complex carbohydrates, where on the scale of fermentability do those sugars sit? So this is pretty much 100% fermentable. This, being our blackstrap molasses, I've put myself on the spot here. Off the top of my head, I'm going to guess that blackstrap molasses, depending on what blackstrap means and the specific molasses you're working with, is probably 10% to 25, 30% unfermentable sugars. Someone fact check me and let me know in the comments whether I'm right on that or not, or if I'm just talking out my ass. But you get the idea, right? How much of this sugar that we've created or that we've found and put into solution is going to ferment? And then to follow up from that, how much about that do you actually care? Are you stressing out about getting as much yield as you can from the ingredients that went in? Or are you happy to kind of play around with unfermentable sugars in other ways later on? If you can answer those questions about the ingredient you have, you can figure out exactly how to make this fermentable and get to the point where you're up to fermentation, going into distillation. So let's run an example through this thing, shall we? And let's start with something super freaking basic, just so you can kind of get an idea on how this this flow works. Let's start with table sugar. I think you guys all know exactly what to do with this, but let's run through the example anyway. First of all, does it have carbs? Yes, it's got a buttload of carbs. That's all it is. Number two, are they starches or simple sugars? Simple sugars. So we mix it with water and we aim for 8 to 14% potential alcohol, and you can use the calculator on chasercraft.com to do that. There's a sugar calculator there. You can translate that into things like this relatively easy too, with a little bit of work on your part if you want to. And then we need to ask the question, is that solution that we've created highly fermentable? And the answer is yeah, it really is. It's like 99% fermentable, and it's going to ferment out easily, so let's ferment it. Obviously, guys, there's going to be like little tweaks here and there that there's 1,000 other things that you need to do in distilling that don't fall into this. I'm not going to tell you that you need like nutrients in here. I'm not going to tell you what yeast to use and what temperature to ferment it at and so on and so forth. This is just, the flowchart is just for thinking about how to deal with the fermentable side of things, okay? So just know there is other knowledge you need, but this is going to get you through the hard part. All right, so that's sorted. By the way, team, I should have told you this already. That was a little silly of me, but this entire flowchart is available on chasercraft.com. There is a link down below. It's a downloadable PDF if you want to print it out and stick it on the wall in the shed or whatever works for you. That is fine by me. And while you're there, you can have a think about picking up some of these. The new CTC Maturation Sticks. Perfect if you're making whiskey, rum, or even just wanting to, age gin or vodka or something like that. So let's do another example that is also, well, I mean, it's completely standard if you're making whiskey, and that is malted barley. This malted barley happens to be the Manuka smoked stuff from Gladfields, which is freaking delicious. But anyway, let's go through the flowchart, shall we? Yeah, it's got a buttload of energy in the form of carbs. Those carbs are mostly complex starches. Has it been gelatinized? It's been malted. So we know that yes, these starches are gelatinized. And does it have enough enzymes? Yep. Diastatic power of this stuff is off the charts compared to most other things. It's got all the diastatic power that you will need to convert itself. By the way, guys, diastatic power is just a measure of the amount of enzymes in it. And there's a second page to the flowchart that has a few of these little cheat sheets in it to help you, figure out what some of these things are, answer some questions for you. And if they don't answer the questions, I'll at least tell you exactly what to Google so you can carry on through the chart. Anyway, yes, it's gelatinized. Yes, it has enough enzymes. So we mash it. And then at the end of the mash, we ask ourselves, is this highly fermentable? And because we use the full natural enzyme package in the barley, yeah, it's going to be pretty freaking fermentable, especially if we mashed at 64 degrees Celsius, so we can ferment the stuff. Now, let's do something that's a little bit off the wall. Flour. Straight up flour. This is actually self-raising flour, but imagine it's just wheat flour. Anyway, so yes, got a buttload of carbs in it. Yes, those carbs are in fact complex starches. Is it gelatinized? No, it's not. That's the first time we've run into this, right? So what do we have to do? We have to gelatinize the starch. Once again, there's a little thing on this, on the cheat sheet, but basically gelatinizing means that we're going to take the really tight, like screwed up starch molecule, open it up, and make it soluble in water so the enzymes can do their job later on. And the way we do that is by cooking starch. So we're going to cook it in water for about an hour. 1 part starch, 4 parts water, and leave yourself enough room to top it up if you can. Bonus points if you want to do this without dealing with the goop. Use some sacrificial enzymes. This isn't a video about the specific process for all of these things. Everyone says, oh, why don't you just tell me? Because if I did, this video would be 6 hours long. Like, just trust, it's a complex issue. We're dealing with the fermentable stuff here. But sacrificial enzymes will save the goop for you. Anyway, so we boil it for 1 hour. Now the starch is gelatinized. And we ask the question, does it have enough enzymes? And even if it did have enzymes, we just boiled the snot out of it for an hour. Even if we add sacrificial enzymes, we just boiled the snot out of it. So no, it doesn't have enough enzymes. We need to add enzymes in. So what do? Well, we could use the barley again, because we know that this is the point in the chart where the barley comes back in to this flow chart, right? So from this point on, the barley's going to look after itself, and it's going to look after the flour, so we can carry on. Cool. Or you could use bottled enzymes, liquid enzymes, and the stuff that you'll be looking for here would be alpha amylase. Okay, so we mash it with either alpha amylase or with some more barley, and we have a wort or a wash at the end, which we need to ask the question, is this highly fermentable? If we mashed it with this at around 64, 65 degrees Celsius, yeah, it's going to be pretty fermentable. But if we mashed it with just alpha amylase, not so much. So we probably want to add some glucoamylase in before we actually ferment. Now, at this point in time, you're probably starting to think, if you're new to this, whoa, that got a little bit more complex. I don't know about using enzymes. I don't know about adding barley into it. I don't know what's going to be fermentable or not. I get you. I understand. This is a kind of a complex but very simple topic if you take it step by step, and that's why I've put it into a flow chart. At least if you're following this flow chart and you get to a point where you don't know the answer, you have a very specific question that you can go and Google, right? Rather than having this amorphous blob of nothingness as a question, how do I ferment flour? Does that make sense? So it's going to take you through all of the steps, and if you run into an issue, do a little bit of research and you'll get the answer to a very specific question a lot quicker than trying to figure out all of it. Cool? All right, let's do another weird one, shall we? Something that might come up kind of often. Bread, seeing as I've got it here, my word. Leftover bread. There's always little bits of this laying around. Is it worth saving? Has it got a whole lot of energy and carbohydrates? Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. So yeah, we can save up all the little leftovers, throw them into the freezer, and once we have enough, we ask the question, what kind of carbohydrates are they? Mostly starch. All right, has it been gelatinized? Yes, it has been gelatinized because this was quite moist when it went into the oven, and it went into the oven for a decent amount of time. So those starches are gelatinized perfectly for us. Excellent, we don't have to boil it. Does it have enough enzymes? Nope. So now we're at the point that we were before, right? We can either add this, or we can add our own enzymes in. We mash it, and then we decide how fermentable it is. Do we need the glucoamylase or do we not need the glucoamylase? You either add it or you don't, and you move on to fermenting it. So I hope that this is starting to set in with you a little bit now. Like I said before, you're going to run into weird questions that you don't know the answer to. They're easy to answer and you can keep moving. And the other cool thing about it is that if you come across stuff like this, it's pretty easy to answer the question as well. So, does it have a buttload of energy in the form of carbs? Yeah. Are those carbs starches or sugars? Well, they're both, aren't they? Because there's cereal in here and there's just straight up sugar in here. What that means is that you can do the pathway for both of them and figure out what the minimum needed process is to get everything fermentable. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. So first of all, let's go with the sugary side of things, right? Like all of the frosting and just the charms themselves. They're simple sugars. We add them into water. Are they fermentable? Debatable, but I would say they're pretty highly fermentable. So that's what we need to do. But we also know that there's going to be some carbohydrates in here. Let's go through that process, shall we? All right, well, those carbs are gelatinized, I'm going to guess, because they would have been cooked. So they're gelatinized. Do they have enzymes? No. So we're going to add enzymes in, once again, barley or out of a bottle. We're going to mash them. And then we're going to ask ourselves, are they fermentable? That depends on, once again, how you mash them and what you mash them with, whether it was barley or enzymes. And then we're going to ask, do we need to add the glucoamylase? Depending on how you mashed it, you can decide either way. You can add glucoamylase to completely dry it out. And now you know that you've utilized both the starch in the cereal and also the simple sugar. All right, I need to say a huge, huge thank you to the Patreons. Whoa, I'm whacking things. Stop. And disturbing the spiders. Anyway, thank you, Patreons. I very, very much appreciate all that you do for me. Apologies for being a little bit vacant at the moment. We've been having some time off over Christmas, but I'm back. I'm back now, and I will be getting in touch with you guys over on the Patreon platform. And of course, this PDF I'll make available on Patreon as well. So thank you for everything you do, guys. I thoroughly appreciate it. Anyway, I really hope that either the information of this video or the diagram and the cheat sheet helped you get your head around this stuff. There's going to be a lot of you that have watched through this far that say, dude, it's easy. Thank you for watching the video this far, if you're one of those. But remember what it was like when you were new and you're trying to get your head around this. And for the people that are new, dude, I get it. Trust me, I remember how inept I felt trying to work this out initially. So I hope it helped. And let me know. There's this video and the one that I told you about earlier on. There's a link in the description down below for it. Which one of those two videos, or these two videos, I should say, helped you out the most? Because I'm trying to figure out where people are and, you know, like what ways I can convey information to help you out the most. Does that make sense? All right. So drop a comment down there. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's gaps in this that you think people should know. Obviously, there's always going to be like little, you know, nuances. This is more about the rule, not the exception. But anyway, let me know if there's something you think I need to add to it. And have a kick-ass week. And I'll catch you next time. See you later, guys.